Hello world, Civ 106, welcome to week 12. And before I start, I just want to say that, I've been telling this to all my classes that my heart is going out to everyone in California, all of you. I mean, all of these fires, just so many fires, and it's really hard to watch. Over here, when I was in Portland, was that last year or 2 years ago, that we had those fires in the Northwest? And I remember ash being everywhere, and it just felt like Armageddon or something was happening, and it was very hot, and there was no air conditioning in the house. And I remember just being really overwhelmed. It was just terrible, knowing, that it was doing so much destruction. And I have, I think I told you guys that I used to own a small coffee shop in Salon in McHenry Village. I can't remember if I told you, but that was my other life. When my daughter was just born about that time. Anyhow, someone there that I've worked with, she had 4 of her family members had the houses burned down from Paradise. It's terrible. And then somebody I went to grad school with, her step-grandmother died in one of the fires. So anyways, I'm just saying I realize it's a big deal. It's very personal. And it's also, I'm seeing on pictures from Facebook and Instagram, of what many of you are having to deal with to the sky and the air. So yeah, I've been thinking about you guys, okay? And also the mass shootings, which I'm probably going to repeat a few things because I'm never can remember what, sometimes I just say things over and over, but I'm just telling you, not so much to make like a political point, but Europeans really do think that we're crazy with our gun obsessions. They don't have that as a right here. I don't think anybody has a Second Amendment kind of situation here, except Switzerland has something sort of. They have a very intense gun culture, but they also, I believe, have to be a part of militias or something. I'll step out of that for now. Just needless to say, we're a little bit unique in our obsession with guns, our legal rights to guns, and some would argue and what happens with them. But I read debates about the statistic factors of that. All I'm telling you is that people here just, when they see a mass shooting, this is what they tell me. And I heard this, like, so many people, they're like, so you guys are going to try to, like, stop having more guns now, right? After the 20 million mass shooting. And I'm like, no, a lot of people think that people should have conceal and carry. And they just don't get it. Anyhow, I just thought I'd let you know. And I just want to say, because I've seen this keep popping up, as a side note, Hitler did not take all the guns from the people. That's a myth that people say. Well, Hitler, the first thing he did to come to power was take all the guns. No, that's not true. He actually expanded gun rights. More people had guns under Hitler than the previous regime. Now, I'm not saying that means everybody had guns, and he didn't have a Second Amendment to work with. That's just not what happened. That's a misleading discussion in the topic. It doesn't really belong into the discourse, whichever way you think about the gun issue. Just to clarify, Hitler came to power, and he, stayed in power mainly because the majority of German people are a good chunk, maybe not, I don't know about the majority, but a good chunk believed in his ideologies, and they didn't care about what he was doing to other people because it wasn't them. And that's always how it works, right? I mean, I don't want to this is kind of controversial, but I feel like I should say it. When you see the refugee crisis that happens here, there's a lot of refugees here in Europe, and I've made friends with several Syrian refugees. You guys have seen me post some stories on that. But when people are coming in, boats and they're fleeing from wars, many of you don't want refugees here in the United States fleeing a war. And I understand why. But I just want to point out that there's over 200,000 people had to flee their homes, that had no control over that because of fires in California. And when you have 200,000 people, when you have a whole town being emptied, keep in mind that means that the undesirable people, the people who are shady in those towns, come also with the good people. does that make you not want to embrace or help your fellow Californians that are essentially refugees at the moment from the fire? And don't you feel it for them, right? Like knowing that they now are relying on everybody's generosity because their homes burned down, they don't have a job, and they can't be where they were located. They have to go somewhere else. Well, they have a place here, right? Right? I don't know. Just want you to think about that. I know that that could be looked at. That doesn't 100% work to illustrate the global refugee crisis, but I hope it kind of brings at least some empathy into your heart to understand the complex nature, and to just to think about it in those terms if you haven't already. Having said that I do think that there needs to be a much more elaborate, proactive kind of global cooperation issue on that topic. And this is a good segue to say that we are now bouncing from this into a very important topic that I really like to talk about. And it's important because it is a topic in Europe and in the United States. And it can go very, very negative. And it can go very, very naive. But it's over the question of what Islam is all about. Well, we're going to cover that very thoroughly. And for the rest of this class, we will then cover later on different Muslim regimes. Okay? And why I like teaching this is because, it really does help put some perspective on it. It's not, the way that I'm teaching this history, by the way, it's not going to make you, pro-Muslim, and it's not going to make you anti-Muslim, I think, unless you already have something within your own value system to make it, to be repulsed or to be drawn in. I really try, like just with Christianity and Judaism, I always want to just get you to understand the actual history. Now, I just want to say this really briefly, that This is where I wish I could have this discussion in a face-to-face class. And I don't want to be too long-winded or confusing, and this announcement video is already taking too long. But Judaism and Christianity in academia, not in people's personal lives, gets very heavily critiqued in terms of questioning, like, okay, does the book of Genesis really, like, was it written by Moses? And many Christian theologians and rabbis that are not hardcore conservatives think that, for instance, Genesis has two different authors. And they don't believe it's written historically by Moses, even though they are believers in Christianity and in Judaism. This doesn't fly with fundamentalists, a conservative view from Orthodox Jews and more Bible-believing Christians. And that doesn't work for religious Muslims as well. But within academia, academics have kind of, I don't want to say bought into the history that we have of Islam. We have a lot that comes a lot later, that some of the history about the Prophet and the community. And my thought is we're taking a lot of information at face value that maybe in the future would be looked at differently. This would be seen for a conservative as an attack on Islam in the way that Christians and Jews might see that the other approaches are attack. But I'm not trying to promote an idea of an attack on religion. What I'm simply saying is that the early development of the history are produced by sources that are much later. And, so is this the actual story? Well, I'm teaching it as the actual story because this is the standard history that we learn from all branches of academic, with a few exceptions of some people on the side who kind of really try to challenge some of those standard narratives. And again, my opinion is I've read some of the people who try to critique it. I don't see them actually attacking. I don't see them attacking anything that would change the actual core religious ideas. But having said that, it's always controversial for historians to kind of delve into histories that are considered sacred, and when those histories are considered to be something that you don't debate or discuss, like, in any kind of potential alternative narrative, And I think that many of you felt that with the Christianity discussions as well. But I want to say that I think for my Jewish students and my Christian students and my Muslim students and my Hindu students, so far most of my students have found that I am treating this like a serious academic subject, and I'm also treating the religion with the respect that you would expect for people that are of faith, right? And I also did not try to do a politically correct version, but I do try to, and when I say that, I mean, you have people who are talking about some who try to talk about highlighting only the good. Well, I don't believe in any, I think you've seen this with me. If someone tries to say, when someone says, is Islam a religion of peace? I find that to be a flawed question. I don't like, if someone asked that about Buddhism, I would say the same thing, and Christianity, or any other, okay? When you say, is this a religion of peace? And I've seen there's actual debates that people have had on this topic. I'm like, when it's peaceful, and people are peaceful, it's a religion of peace. When it's violent, it's a religion of violence. When a white American used slavery and justified it through Christianity, slavery was violent. I mean, Christianity was a violent, oppressive religion. Does it mean that Christianity is not? No, I'm simply saying, right, human behavior, doing something in the name of something, can be bad or good. And for me, as a person who studied a lot, I mean, look at that book, Jesus Wars. That's my whole point to illustrate to you. Like, so take it or leave it. That's my little 2 cents to say on all this. And so, but I want you to feel free to express anything you want to about any of these subjects. So I'm going to end it here and say, if you want to discuss, if you are a religious Muslim and you have some issues about where I presented something there, or you are more critical and you think I'm being too soft, whatever the case is, talk to me. I want us to engage in this. And by the way, I guarantee you, you're all going to be really fascinated by the Muslim Jesus documentary. And I always find that's an enjoyable one, because so many of you are just going to be like, what? And that's what I like to do. I like to teach you the history to get you to learn something really new and to get a whole nother perspective, right? And so I'll stop babbling. I'll let you guys do your thing, and we'll be in touch. And quickly to say, the pictures that I have are from a town called Nijmegen. I think that's how it's pronounced. The G in Dutch is like a hard K, like in Arabic, like G. And there was this young girl that I watched at a kids center in Portland, and her mothers are Dutch. And yes, her mothers are married, legally married. And then they just had a son. And I went to go spend time with them. And they're a great family. And I had a great time. And that little girl, she's adorable. What's interesting is, I'll just quickly say this, and then I'll really end, is that many buildings were new, even though this is one of the oldest cities in the Netherlands. And the reason is because they were all bombed by the Allies, because Nazis occupied that part of the Netherlands. Well, they occupied all the Netherlands, but Germany's only 10 minutes away from the town that I was in. And there's markers there showing where all these bombs were dropped, carpet bombs. So it just really made me realize that all societies, just like we see in Syria and Iraq, is what Europeans were doing to each other not that long ago. And I'm seeing the remnants of that right there, And I was in Frankfurt, Germany. That was the same thing. It's mainly all new buildings because the Allies bombed the hell out of it, trying to fight the Nazis. And it's the German people and the Dutch people, especially their older people, are aware of the realities of wars in the same way that many people coming from other war-torn nations are experiencing. So that's all I'm going to say anymore. 15-minute announcement. Sorry about that. All right. You guys have a good night.